All right, folks, hello and welcome back to online English class. Hope you guys are doing well today. Today we're going to continue the process of drafting your quarter four essay, looking at the next few focus points that your essay is going to be evaluated according to. All right, so before we do that, let's quickly run through the top of the week announcements in preparation for our work for the day. All right, so first of all, you need to finish your work for the semester and then return the books that you owe to me to my room, okay? Second, make sure that you are continuing your discussion grade procedure on a daily basis. And third, make sure that you know that your quarter four essay is due at the latest on May 22nd, all right? It's no problem if you turn it on May 22nd. In fact, I think that would be a smart thing to do, give you a little more time to tighten down the screws, batten down the hatches, make sure that the whole essay is airtight, but just make sure, all right, that you're not turning it in late. All right, if you turn it in late, 23rd, 24th, 25th, then you're going to incur a late penalty. Every day late is a letter grade off the score that you would have gotten. Okay, so if you start with a C and you turn in one day late, then you get a D. Okay, and on down the line. Okay, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump back into our work. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time together. I want you to have time today just to apply these things, but I want to go back over a few important aspects of the composition process so that you can improve your own draft. All right. So yesterday we talked about the overarching essay writing and editing process. We talked about the importance of generating ideas about the prompt so that you understand precisely what the prompt is asking you to write about, and also precisely how the prompt is going to require you to write about whatever it wants you to write about. Okay. So in terms of length, in terms of using outside resources, in terms of avoiding certain kinds of outside resources that are clearly spelled out here in the prompt. You need to make sure if you want to get this portion of the rubric, if you want to get a good score on this portion of the rubric, that you are taking care to generate ideas about this prompt and make sure your overarching essay is doing the basic task that has been assigned to it, okay? Now, more specifically, yesterday we talked about your thesis statement, okay? And we looked at this past student essay, Fraudulent Core, Fraudulent Fruit, a freshman essay from 2 years ago, that develops a thesis statement that answers the prompt, okay? It takes up one of the major topics offered to you as an option, Chaucer's depiction of the church, and it interprets what Chaucer's tales have to say, how they illustrate Chaucer's view of the medieval Roman Catholic Church. It does not simply just say that Chaucer emphasizes the Roman Catholic Church or depicts its importance. That's way too vague. Rather, it uses more specific language, such as Chaucer satirizes or mocks the Roman Catholic Church, of course, raising the question, what? Why? Right? Because it's fraudulent and hypocritical. All right, how does he do this? Next logical question, through his portrayal of the pardoner. Okay, to sort of wrap up his thesis in a nice bow, he comes back to the greater theme at stake here, that Chaucer stresses that because of the sinful materialism and lust for power, which is an expression of the fraud and hypocrisy at the church's core, okay, you cannot be a sinful materialist and also claim to be the only hope for your citizens to have saving knowledge of God, okay? And you cannot proclaim yourself to be imitators of Christ if your institution is at its core an attempt to gain worldly power. Okay, Christ was pretty notorious for giving away things like power. Okay, a pretty humble guy overall. Okay, so the church becomes, because of this, a corrupt example. And this corrupt example is permeated throughout the rest of the two estates, all right, building to chaos and selfishness, all right? So today we want to talk about the next aspect of a good essay, All right. So after the essay introduces the topic that it's going to be about, and after the essay, after it's very clear to me that the essay is adhering to the basic requirements of the prompt, it's about the thing that it ought to be about. It's structured the way that it ought to be structured. Okay. This is clearly not a rough draft, but rather a final draft. Okay. The next question that I ought to ask myself is, how is the student supporting his thesis statement? How is the student organizing evidence into a clear line of reasoning in body paragraphs that illustrate the fact that this is a valid opinion, that this is true, okay? And unpacks everything that the student has asserted in the thesis. Well, where does that happen? It happens in the body paragraphs, right? So what does it mean to have a good body paragraph, right? Well, today we're going to talk about what a good body paragraph looks like in two different contexts: one as a background body paragraph, and one as an analytical body paragraph. And then we're going to look at the organizational pattern that the student uses to tie together all of his body paragraphs into a coherent body, right? Have you noticed something about your body? It's all tied together, right? A coherent body that supports and enacts and illustrates the validity of the assertion made in the head. Okay, the head is your thesis. Okay, so we're going to look at organizational pattern and the structure of the body paragraphs. Okay, very quickly, right? So, in this first body paragraph, which is a background body paragraph that introduces some of the student's research, all right, the student begins, as he ought to, with a topic sentence. All right, what does a topic sentence do? Well, a topic sentence in a good body paragraph asserts something that is relevant for supporting the central claim. Okay, so all of you know that you need some of these things called topic sentences, but oftentimes, very often, you guys don't exactly know what your topic sentence should be. You know that you need one, all right, and you've learned that phrase. What is a topic sentence? You would say, well, the sentence at the beginning of a body paragraph that says what the body paragraph is about. Okay, but what in an analysis should your paragraphs be about? Well, they should go about the process of supporting your thesis statement, okay? And this thesis statement, all right, requires some background research in order to be adequately supported. So where does the student begin? Not with an analysis of the text, notice, okay, but rather by establishing a kind of historical context, all right, that the student is then going to plug his analysis of the text into, all right, offering an even clearer, historically contextualized reading of Chaucer's perspective. Okay, so the student asserts in the first sentence of this paragraph, without historical background, Chaucer's depictions of a corrupt and sinful church influence cannot be considered rightly. Okay, that begs the question, well, why not? Well, the student's going to explain all of the important background with respect to the cultural influence of the Catholic Church. Okay, the student begins by citing from a book that he had obviously tracked down from the library. Now, in the time of Corona, the trip to your local library is probably not possible at this point, and probably not advisable. Okay, so don't do that. But lucky for you, all you have to use, if you're in the honors class, is two outside resources. One of them you're holding in your hand. It's not the tales. The tales are not a resource outside of themselves, okay, although you're going to need to cite from them, but rather Sheila Fisher's introduction to the tales that offers a kind of historical background here. So you could use Sheila Fisher's background introduction to the text as a historical contextualizing document, okay? Much in the same way, the student here uses the Catholicism Answer book, whatever that is. Never read that book, never held that book, all right? But the student is citing from that book right here. And apparently, he is attempting to illustrate the fact that in the 12th and 13th centuries, right, directly prior to the 14th centuries, that the Catholic Church, under the rule of Pope Innocent III, attained its height in power and influence. Okay, so clearly, that this institution was very powerful. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was corrupt just because it was influential. All right, so the student goes on to illustrate using Trigalio and Briganti, these writers who helped illustrate in their writing the centrality of the Catholic Church in medieval culture. All right, but in the next body paragraph, which I've omitted, all right, the student goes on to discuss how the medieval Catholic Church was deploying its power in order to achieve corrupt ends. All right, it discusses the ways in which it was engaging in holy wars that were extra biblical, that it was selling indulgences to fund church projects, that major construction projects and land acquisitions were at the core of some of the church's work during this period of time. And all of these things were materially oriented, not oriented towards authentically sharing the gospel and ministering to the spiritual needs of Europeans during this period of time. Okay, so this first body paragraph establishes a kind of historical background that essentially just asserts the Roman Catholic Church was really important. Okay, this next body paragraph asserts the Roman Catholic Church was corrupt. All right, not every single person in the Roman Catholic Church was corrupt. It doesn't mean Catholicism is inherently evil. We don't need to go start another holy war with Trinity Catholic or anything like that. But what it does mean is that during this period of time, the fact that they were the only church available and the doctrines that they were following lent themselves to abuse of power, and those abuses of power are embodied in Chaucer's depiction of the pardoner. Okay, so now we've transitioned. All right, notice first paragraph, second paragraph, transition into what? Into textual analysis. The key to Chaucer's specific commentary on the Roman Catholic Church in medieval England is his satirical style. More specifically, Chaucer's satirical portrait of the pardoner in the general prologue and the pardoner's tale. All right, we got a little grammatical error there, fixed it, and we're moving on. All right, this first paragraph, all right, so notice this first assertion says it transitions into our thoughts about who? About the pardoner. Okay, so now we know that in the following paragraph we're going to be thinking about who? The pardoner's characterization. Where? In the general prologue and the pardoner's tale. Well, that's a lot of text, all right? So what the student then goes on to do in this next paragraph is cut that down even further and say, actually, I'm only going to talk about the prologue, the general prologue in this particular area of my essay. Okay, and the student that goes on to analyze the portrayal of the pardoner's appearance in the general prologue, right? Notice his in-text citations throughout the course of his analysis of Chaucer's actual language here. Okay, so Chaucer begins to characterize the pardoner, and the student not only is introducing textual quotations, but then whatting those textual quotations, developing commentary on those textual quotations, analyzing the significance of those textual quotations, explaining how the portrayal that Chaucer gives to us is actually a covert satirization of the church that he represents. The pardoner thinks his appearance to be attractive and beautiful. However, just like the church, his beauty is nothing but a thin layer to cover up his obvious corruption. Chaucer confirms this satirization as he writes, and then we get into further analysis. Okay, so during this paragraph, what happened, guys? The student analyzed the pardoner's portrayal in the general prologue. What's going to happen next? Well, it is only reasonable for the student to spend the rest of the essay describing and analyzing how the pardoner is characterized by his own tale. All right, when the student is done analyzing that portrayal of the pardoner in the pardoner's tale in the same amount of detail, by the way, that he analyzed from the general prologue, so this essay was pretty lengthy, longer than yours needs to be, but again, very excellent and received an excellent grade because of its excellence. By the end of it, we had, what did the student offer us? Okay, well, first, he offered us some historical context in order to situate his analysis of the pardoner in its historical context. All right, that's what these two paragraphs did. Then it offered us an analysis of Chaucer's portrayal of the partner as a representative of a reprehensible and fraudulent Roman Catholic Church, both in the prologue and also in his tale. Once he's done that, has he offered everything necessary in order to substantiate in his body paragraphs the statement made in his thesis statement? Yes. All right. We now know that Chaucer has indeed satirized the partner, and the partner the partner's satirization is an illustration of Chaucer's larger perspective of the church, and it is indeed a perspective that is characterized by a very negative view of the church, that views the church as one of the elemental problems in a society because of its representatives' neglect of their true duties for selfish gain. Okay, so has the student illustrated that statement through textual analysis? Yes. How did he do that? Well-developed body paragraphs. How did he organize the body paragraphs? All right, last question of the day. Into a line of reasoning, all right, that was well planned out, that clearly moved through a progression, a logical progression that substantiated each aspect of his claim, right? Why does the student start with historical background? Because that's a reasonable place to begin, all right, if you're going to develop an understanding of Chaucer's portrayal of the Roman Catholic Church in the 14th century, right? The 14th century was a long time ago. So we ought to probably spend a little bit of time looking backwards at the 14th century in order to understand the role that the Roman Catholic Church played in that period of time. It's very different than today, okay? It's a very different kind of institution than it is today, and so we probably ought to spend some time thinking about what kind of institution it was. And then, in order to confirm his statement about the pardoner, his interpretation of what Chaucer is meaning to say through his characterization of the pardoner, right, what do? Well, we go to the major areas of the pardoner's character development, the general prologue and the pardoner's tale. Oh, by the way, the analysis of the pardoner's tale is 3 separate body paragraphs. Why? Because the pardoner's tale is pretty long, and the student chunks it into chronological order. He analyzes the beginning, the middle, and the end of the tale as it relates to the depiction of the pardoner's worldview, and how that characterization of the pardoner illustrates Chaucer's negative view of the church. Okay, so in other words, how's the line of reasoning on this essay? Is that a logical line of reasoning? Absolutely. How are the body paragraphs in this essay? Are there topic sentences that describe very clearly what each body paragraph is going to do? Yes. Is there textual evidence or appropriate evidence in each paragraph substantiating the assertions made in the paragraphs? Yes. Is that evidence commented on by the student, analyzed and explained by the student? Yes. So these body paragraphs are excellent. Are those body paragraphs established or put together in a logical way in order to support the thesis? Yes. So this student is succeeding on points A, B, C, and D. All right. Tomorrow, we'll look at the ways in which the student is succeeding on points E, F, and also G. Have an excellent day.